you all the time now.
Oh yeah, we'll be here in motor vehicles.
Yeah, everything all right?
Things are good. Things
Good.
are good. We got a bill on the floor in the Senate today.
Oh yeah?
That'll hopefully be over here.
What's that?
It has to do with our Motor Vehicle Franchise and Practices Act.
Yeah.
Governs the relationship between the manufacturers and the dealers.
Yeah.
We've been working on it. Some issues our dealers have been complaining about for about 10 or 12 years. So
Yeah.
we're excited about it. We'll get with you though on it.
Huh?
Once it crosses over, we'll get with you.
I know.
Morning.
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 It's a little chilly outside. The wind blowing. Pretty brutal. Mhm.
Honestly, we don't have some time, right?
We did. It was a lot of fun.
I don't care, just
Good morning.
all day long.
We ended up bowling.
Really?
A whole bunch of people wanted to bowl. And it was
Now you got all smile.
There's like 4 different pieces of property.
Jimmy Pruitt was our winner.
Really?
He bowled 144 was his, he said he hadn't bowled that in 20 years.
144.
Uh-huh.
That's pretty good.
Yeah,
God, it's pretty cool.
they had fun.
And he killed it 180 something. Wow. Wow. Love man.
Mhm.
You didn't get a shot?
Okay.
Matter of fact, I'm going down to my place this weekend.
Hey, how you doing? Good.
Get back from turkeys.
Okay.
What? See, I'd rather do that than anything.
That's it on the desk in the office.
No, I'd rather duck it. Anything in there.
She can,
I'll do
she's here right second. No, actually, and then 1:35. Roger called me
That's it,
early
my wife.
this morning, volunteer services.
You what, volunteer?
Yeah, volunteer your services.
Oh, okay.
You know, I bought a, I bought a muzzle, he got a 4-year warranty.
Take a shower and all.
I've never even shot it, and I don't even know how to operate it. I got one, and I got all the stuff to go with it, but I swear to God, I don't even know how to load it.
It's gonna be on the floor today. Send it to one
Could
of
have
the
been in my
guys.
gun safe, and I gotta learn how to shoot it. I need somebody that knows about taking care of shots.
They were supposed to be doing another lecture.
Oh, man, that's great mass too, look at that thing. Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah. Do y'all set up ground lines? Well, one thing about it, you want to put that stand up.
No. Nice to meet you. Hey, nice to meet you.
Give me a shot, Coach. Grab it.
Thank you so much. This is the first time we recorded.
Welcome to our sunny south.
Good morning. I apologize for being late, but we had another meeting this morning. We'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to ask Representative Kennard if he'll open in prayer for us.
Father, we thank you for this day. We say your grace with thanksgiving, your courts with praise. We filled with gratitude this morning. We're here to work and to serve in this great state of Georgia. Let your kingdom come, let your will be done. In Christ's name, amen.
All right. Thank you. We're going to go right into House Bill 399 this morning. I'm going to ask Representative Trey Kelly if he'll come up and present the bill. And do we have a sign-up sheet to everybody sign up? Sign-up sheet on the table if anybody wants to speak for or against the bill. And this will be a hearing only.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. It's great to be with the Motor Vehicles Committee this morning. I'll tell you, this is my first time in 7 years that I've gotten the opportunity to come before this committee, and honored to get a chance to do so with House Bill 399. For the committee's reference, I'll be working off of LC 392198 ERS. Mr. Chairman, simply what this bill does is recognizes the evolving technology that's taking place within our automotive industry. As you'll notice, sitting on the front podium or seating there, you'll see a digital license plate. And that's what House Bill 399 does, is simply allow citizens of Georgia, if they choose to do so, to purchase a digital license plate and have it installed on their vehicle. Nothing will change in terms of the fee structure for the state or for the the administration of how license plate numbers are issued or vanity plates are purchased. The only thing would change is that you would actually physically purchase either the digital license plate from a auto dealer when you're buying your vehicle, or you could also buy it directly. As you'll notice, Mr. Chairman, it's cycling through several different screens there. That's one of the features that I think, and you see one especially right now that says Amber Alert. The technology that we could use on these digital license plates would allow important messages like missing adults, like Amber Alerts, like that this vehicle is stolen, to flash up on the digital license plate to alert other motorists if there's a situation. It would also allow individuals, if they would like to customize their driving experience more and have more than one vanity plate. You know, one thing is, I know this committee's aware, is the number of license plate bills that gets introduced every year, and the fact that we have them go into production and come on into our code. But what this would allow you to do is it simply switch right there from the Atlanta Falcons to the Atlanta Braves, as if the vehicle was stopped, you could cycle for different experiences. So there's a prospective Atlanta United plate I think that this committee's probably familiar with. Go Dogs, they're at the University of Georgia. So on game day in Athens, you could have a University of Georgia tag. That next Sunday, if you went to cheer on the Falcons, you could change it to your Falcons tag. And you could have all these luxuries. This has been passed in 6 other states. And essentially what it would work again is the consumer would purchase it directly from either a dealer or direct from the manufacturer. The cost associated with that for them is somewhere around $499 for one model, $799 for an additional, or for some extra features like GPS or accelerometers. We see this could be useful for fleet services and people that's important to keep a track of their employees through GPS or accelerometer. In this bill, I'll make clear though, while there's one of the vendors who supplies these digital license plate, the bill is not specifically limited to any vendor. It just simply allows the process for them to be legal and to be allowed to be used instead of a Georgia license plate. Mr. Chairman, I'll be glad to answer any questions for the committee. I know I have some other people who want to speak on the measure and could help us go through some of the specifics of the legislation if the committee chooses.
All right. We've got a couple questions. If you don't mind, we'll go number 2.
Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was watching a YouTube video the other day where this little kid got a hearing aid installed, and he heard his mother's voice for the first time, and you could see the puzzled look on this little kid's face, and that's something like I was thinking about when I saw that doggone license plate over there. I didn't know such a thing existed. And so I'm thinking of all these scenarios of watching these movies on TV, and what about the possibility when of my local law enforcement, who do a great job, and they got all these cameras on the back of their car that they read these license plates, and if something pops up with an Amber Alert, it just kind of flashes up on their cruiser, and they pick these things up. And I understand that they have these things out there. Is it possible for me going down the road, if I got a buddy who's pretty good with computers, and that I can change my license plate number going down the road to maybe circumvent my local law enforcement from knowing where I'm at?
So first, I think you brought up a great point there at the beginning of your question, and that's the way that technology can be used to solve big problems that weren't able to be solved previously in our society. When you think about that child who's able to hear because of the technology that's been developed, that's a great thing. I think it would also be great stories to tell that children were stopped or children were located through Amber Alerts that were able to be more effectively, or that cars would be able to be recovered. But to simply answer your question, one, you cannot change even back and forth from any of the vanity plates while you're driving down the road. 2, when messages of Amber Alert like that one pop up, or stolen vehicle, that's done through efforts driven by law enforcement. And you asked a question that I asked when I got involved in this legislation, is how it would impact the current license plate scanners, how it would impact law enforcement's ability. And I'll tell you that we've been working diligently with the chiefs of police and law enforcement officials at every level of government to make sure their concerns are addressing this. We want this to be used as a tool that helps law enforcement. We want this to be used as a tool to help make Georgia a safer place to live, you would not be able to simply change your license plate number. You would still work the same way it does to DOR. They issue you a license plate number. The difference today is you would be able to purchase multiple vanity license plates for one vehicle, so you would have multiple license plate numbers associated with you, but you would not be able to change those when you're going down the road. And I'm sure that the Department of Revenue and our local law enforcement would have a way to keep a track. And if there's a Amber Alert or invalid tags, there's ways that it'll be clearly displayed or be able to pick up. You know, there's one thing that license plate scanners pick up on a lot is maybe when your tag has not been renewed the way it's properly done. As you'll see on that digital license plate, it creates an X where the tag would typically be. And so if a law enforcement official is going down the road, they don't need a license plate scanner to know that it's out of date. They will clearly be able to see that X marks the spot. That's a license plate that's not been renewed. It will make our streets safer, and this will be a tool for law enforcement.
The more you talk, the more questions you got.
I'm here to answer.
All right, number 10.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Ms. Whitmire. I guess I have a couple, Mr. Chairman. My own concern is that as I hear you talk, the charities, you know, they receive a percentage of this. I'm just trying to figure out if I could just switch out from the Falcons to the Cancer Society to the whatever. Now, how does that work?
So this would actually be something that would be beneficial to those charities, and that's a great question. Today, we know that you have to pick your most favorite charity, or divide your allegiance, between your sports. I may want a Georgia Bulldog tag for my constituent Nick Chubb, but I may want to also have Atlanta Falcons tag to honor my favorite Atlanta Falcons that serves in the State House, Dewey McClain. And so, but today I can't have both of those. Today I have to choose. With the digital license plate, you can own multiple vanity tags, but nothing would change in terms of the purchase price or the allocation and the division of the fees. So for charities, more people, they will have more consumers, more of a market, and that would result in, I think, more money going to those charities.
Thank Mr. Chairman, can I have just one more follow-up?
Yes.
I heard about the $500. Now, the $500 price, now, was that, I'm just trying to figure out now, is that going to the Department of Revenue, or is that going to the dealership, or are they paying us? I mean, I'm just.
No, it's a great question. It's a great question. And so nothing will change today in terms of the revenue split that comes through the Department of Revenue, through the state, for when you buy your tag, when you pay for your tag, the fee splits that go along with that. Nothing will change with this bill today on that. The purchase price I mentioned is simply for the software that you see sitting there, the actual computer and technology that goes there. Nothing changes in terms of the fee split for the actual purchasing of the tags and the revenue that goes to the state.
Thanks, Chairman.
Number 16.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm pretty excited to see this, but like Representative Herkel, my first concern was, someone could easily hack into this thing and maybe change a number of such. But then I got to thinking, a metal license plate is very difficult to counterfeit, but I can just see some Chinese company producing this box right here and selling it on the black market and someone putting up an artificial tag number. So what would prevent that?
Well, the same thing that would, prevent someone from stealing a license plate off someone else's car and driving around with it. When a law enforcement officials through a license scanner or others come back and scan it, or through other ways, they can still detect that it's a fake license plate. The same way if someone steals it and it's not assigned to the vehicle that it's supposed to be on, law enforcement will still have the ability to recognize that it's an invalid plate, the same way they do if a tag's not on the correct car today.
All right.
Okay, number 6. I'm sorry.
I believe, but
try it again.
That's all right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I've got a little bit above average knowledge about this bill, but is it not true, Mr. Whip, that this actually has the full endorsement and support of DOR and our law enforcement community, including the Sheriff's Association, because of its unique technology that if a plate is stolen, removed from a vehicle, it's got theft-proof screws and that type of thing, I believe. Is that not correct? That the tag actually flashes stolen?
Yeah,
but again,
correct.
I want to emphasize that the revenue split remains the same.
Mm-hmm.
The cost is to the consumer who decides to spend the extra money for this high-end vanity tag. In essence, is what it is. But I want to emphasize again, this has the full support of DOR and all of our law enforcement. They support this because of the tremendous assets and technology this affords for Amber Alerts, stolen vehicles, stolen tags, and such. Is that not correct?
That's exactly correct.
Thank you.
All right. We don't have any other questions. At this time, I'd like to hear from DOR if they would like to comment on the bill. I mean,
I'm actually communicating with the commissioner right now. The department hasn't investigated the resources necessary, the logistics necessary to implement this. We're still monitoring.
and this is a hearing only. We just wanted to get the information out and get the conversation started. So that's why we're having just a hearing only. So that's why I was interested to hear what you had to say. Number 2.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One quick comment. I just want to make sure that my first comment was not misconstrued, that I am opposed to the technology. I think this is great. I just had no idea that it existed, and I was just thinking through the potential ramifications and the possibilities of nefarious acts. But technology, we should update our laws to reflect changes in technology. I saw I watch too much TV. I saw a TV program the other day that showed the back of one of these big semis that actually showed what would be in front of that semi on the back of it as it's going. And I thought, I'd never thought about that. If you could look through this thing to see when the tail light's on the car in front. So technology, I'm not saying this is bad, but it is something that needs to be thought through. And I thank you for bringing it.
Well, I appreciate that, and then I didn't take your comments anything more than a full-throated support of the measure, and but I do appreciate your comments, my friend, and certainly agree with you in terms of it's new technology, and like all new technology, it needs to be vetted, and we need to make sure that we always put the citizens of our state and their safety first and foremost above anything. And as you can see, they're pretty resilient too. So, but thank you for the question and your comments.
All right. Mr. Whip, I know you had some guests that might like to come up and comment on it if they so choose. I know they didn't sign up, but if you want to come up and say, brief, we do have 3 other bills we need to get through since it's here and only, but
Hello, Mr. Chairman and committee. My name's Neville Boston. I'm the CEO of Reviver Auto. We've been around for about 10 years. I think what we do that I think is a little bit different is we take the time to actually work with states to find out benefits for the technology. I don't ever think of myself as a vendor. I think of myself as a partner, and that's the way that our company's operated over the last 10 years. We're currently in Arizona. We're also in California. We passed legislation, introduced legislation in Texas, Florida, Washington State, Michigan, and we are looking to work in partnership with the state. What I want to do is answer any questions that you have about the technology. I know there was concerns about security. The security for the plate is like an online banking session. It's 265-bit encryption, and there's a digital key that has to be signed with any messaging that comes on the plate. Absolutely correct that you cannot change any messaging when the vehicle's in motion. It's only when it's stopped, and it's through an app, which is also secure. So I just wanted to answer any questions that anybody had in regards to technology.
Okay. How long have you been in Arizona? Apparently, they've passed the law in Arizona, and the others you just introduced, if I understood that right.
Yeah. So Arizona for 2 years, and initially having the conversation with the Department of Transportation, and then put them on the road for a year, and then got full authorization in January, and then Michigan was in December, and we've been selling these plates in California since June of last year.
Okay, I've got a couple questions. Number 7.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming. This is extremely unique. Just a quick question. If you could walk me through a high-level understanding of the app, the sign-in process, just kind of the security around that would be great. Thank you, sir.
Sure. As far as the application that we use, when it's at rest, it's actually secure as far as how you get into the system of itself. But if you're asking about like the app to be able to connect with DOR or anything else like that, just give me a little bit more clarification on what you want to know.
Yes, sir. When you mentioned that, how we can switch between what's on the back, right? So if I'm stopped and I want to go from my dogs to, the Falcons, how does that work? Do I have a unique sign-in? Do I contact an administrator to do that? How does that work?
So what would happen is this. There will be images that we work with DOR and law enforcement before we actually put them in a library. So you will have a choice of maybe 100 different messages. I think there's 380 different unique plates in Georgia. I know there's like 90 in Arizona. And you would be able to choose from those plates. And if you purchase them, they'll be put in your library, and then you can choose to switch them out however you'd like to.
When you said I'm sorry. When you say you purchase them, that money goes to your company or goes to the DOR?
No. It would go exactly to
Okay.
the organizations that, you know, we were working with. There's no change and no, as far as the split with the money of where it goes to. It goes to where it normally does.
All right, we've got one other question, and we're going to cut it off. We've got some other bills we need to get to. Number 10.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I guess you helped me right along with asking the question how the funds were split. I guess my concern too, and I guess I heard it earlier. I don't know if Whip said it. How does a technology with the scanners that the police officers and everybody else have? I mean, because I know how they read a tag,
Mm-hmm.
and I just don't know if they would read that digital the same way.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if the police got to buy additional. I hope I understand right. Hope they don't have to buy any additional software or any equipment for them to be able to read the tag.
That's an excellent question. So what we've been doing is we've worked with LPR companies, license plate reader companies, to make sure that our technology interfaced well with it. What we're also looking to do is that the Department of Justice is the repository for all of the information that LPR goes to, because it's able to validate whether, you know, there's an infraction on that particular tag. So what we would do is anytime that we sold the plate, that information would be updated. So you wouldn't only know where the vehicle was, you would know where it is now because it has a GPS in there. So for law enforcement, it's a better tool because it's able to be read. As far as LPRs, the cameras for tolling and everything can all be read on the plate. That's not an issue. The issue, I think, is with some RFID and not RFID, but infrared, and where, you know, it's a software fix to be able to update that. It's not new hardware that you would have.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Thank you, Whip Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the committee's time.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. At this time, we will hear House Bill 554, Representative Jason Ridley. Yeah, you can do it from here. Be fine.
All right, so House Bill 554, if you remember last year, we done the bill passed out of the House. I think there was only 2 no votes. Was House Bill 761, doing away with the ETR, which is electronic title transfer system that the Department of Revenue's come up with, that they want the dealers to go through processing their titles. I think we all have had phone calls from our local dealers that's had issues with that, so that's what we did last year. The governor signed it in June of last year and passed, and it stayed in existence for about 34 days till the Department of Revenue decided they had the authority to rescind the bill. I found out that I didn't know that the commissioner could rescind the bill, but I guess they can. So here we are again. We're back with the same bill this year. Basically what all it's going to do is it's going to give the auto dealers a choice if they want to use the electronic titling system to go through DOR, or they can hand walk the titles into the local courthouse. I've got the full support of the Georgia Tax Commissioners Association with this, and that's what the bill does.
All right. Do we have any questions? We have anybody signed up to speak? Come to the microphone and state your name and occupation.
All right, I usually don't need a microphone because I'm real loud, but I'm Amy Bennett. I'm the executive director of the largest association in the country. We service over 2,700 members, and we are GIADA. This is John Weir, who is also the chairman of our legislative committee and is a dealer in Georgia as well. And I do want to thank the chair and the members of I'm sorry. I'd like to thank everybody for letting us have this time to speak. GIADA would like for you to please hold House Bill 554. A year ago, if I was standing here, I would have completely agreed that it should not be mandatory, that dealers should have the right to choose how they want to process their titles. I understand it's been a burden on all of them. I understand that you guys are getting a lot of calls. We are too. I don't only get calls from our 2,700 members, I get calls from a lot of other dealers that aren't members with us as well. I decided that I was gonna embrace this bill and I was gonna make it work when I started really digging in and seeing the fraud that was committed in the state of Georgia by automobile dealers. Recently, within the last 6 months, I've been able to hook up with a DOR investigator, 2 of them actually, who we've been in contact every week with. By having titles done electronically and with the temporary tags that we have, we're able to look into somebody's account and see how many temporary tags they're buying and what they're actually doing with those. You all know, because you've seen on the news, how these are being stolen. If I'm a person and I've had several DUIs or I can't afford insurance, I can go to a dealer who's selling these tags for $150, buy it, put it on my car, and for 45 days I'm driving without any insurance. So the investigators started giving us a hit list of dealers that they were looking for or that they had issues with, and we started watching for these because we do sell the tops from our location. And I know GADA sells them as well, but we actually allow the dealer to come in and purchase them, so we're in contact with them throughout the day. We had several that we've actually been able to stop from purchasing them because of the amount that they were misusing the tops. Just recently, we've had, let me go back and tell you that with this DOR investigator, I have discovered that 300,000 unauthorized temporary tags were issued last year. Now, if you take out 20%, and I'm gonna say those are for vehicles that are returned, financing that doesn't go through when they return a vehicle, you're still left with over 200,000 unauthorized tops issued to individuals. Just in the last couple weeks since I've been getting real involved with this, and let me tell you, it was really hard for me because I feel like I'm there to protect the dealer. I'm there to guide them, to train them. They come to me when they need help, when they need assistance. So I had a real hard time at first turning these dealers in because that's just not what we do. We try to help them out. But when you see someone coming in, and to give you just a real quick story, a couple Fridays ago I had a dealer come in, one of the top ones on the DOR investigators hit list. The girl in the front office came and got me. She said, he's here to buy 500 tops. I went out and I just simply told him, I said, look, I cannot sell you these tops until you call the investigator. I gave him his phone number. He said, why do I have to call him? I said, well, there's an issue. You have purchased 700 tops in the last few months and you've only done 2 ETR transactions. So you're evidently selling the tops. He said, no, I'm not. He said, they're all out-of-state sales. I said, tomorrow, if you'll bring me 25 deal jackets, just 25 out of the 700, I'm going to go ahead and sell you those tops. But you still need to call the investigator and get that straightened out, because not only are you doing that, you've also switched some VINs on some vehicles, and the Port Authority's looking for you when you're trying to export those vehicles out. This gentleman walks outside, gets in a brand new Ferrari, picks up the phone, makes a few phone calls, called me the next day. He left, never did come back in, called me the next day and said he could not produce those 25 deal jackets. He's sorry, he just didn't do paperwork on vehicles. About 3 weeks ago, St. Julian Auto Sales was another one on our hit list. They had purchased 1,900 tops from us and had processed 16 ETR deals last year. I could go on and on. Over the weekend, if you were watching Fox 5, J-Rob out of Douglasville, we started an investigation with them with the DOR investigator. That led to the DEA getting involved. It led to the Douglasville PD getting involved. They ended up taking 64 ounces of marijuana off the streets along with other drugs, stolen watches, stolen exotic cars. So there's a lot of fraud going on out there. And I'm telling you, with these 3 examples, I've given you all 3 of those fell under the 10 or under that I know that Mr. Ridley wanted to pass last year as well. I think we need to come into the 19th century. I mean, we're here, it's 2019. Things have gone electronic. But because of this, it has really stopped a lot of fraud. It's also easier to catch the duplicate titles, stolen vehicles, cloning vehicles, branded titles that are being washed in other states. Instead of that taking 30 to 45 days, you know, now paperwork's being turned in within 8 days, and I think it's easier to catch that. There are always going to be people that don't agree with it because nobody likes to change their business plan. But I do know that business and dealers have invested tons and tons of money on ETR and TAVT, and changing it every year is just awful for the dealers and it's awful for business owners.
And if I could, again, my name is John Weir. I'm a used car dealer, and I've been using the ETR system for about 2 years now since it was first available. And at first it was, there was a little headache in terms of change, but once we were on it, we've not had any problems. We do about 40 ETR transactions a month. I don't have any problems getting titles transferred. It happens very quickly. It's as simple as, even today, you can scan your titles in from your office to our vendors, our QA vendors, to get titles transferred. Or if you don't have a scanner, you can actually just mail it in. It's very simple.
Okay, and if I read the bill right, you're still able to do that.
Right.
If I'm reading this bill, you still can do that.
You
It's
can
not
still, yeah, you can
prohibiting from
still
doing
do that. But I feel like the amount of fraud that goes in or that occurs with issuing temp tags, from based on my conversations with the DOR investigator, the ETR system really allows them to catch and pursue and enforce people who are committing fraud.
How are you issuing temp tags without a sale?
They're going in and manipulating the system. I mean,
So
you
how's
can-
that? But so we're going to punish everybody else because somebody figured out a way, a loophole to go
I
through?
can promise you, I could go into any district and I would risk my job on it that I could find you a third of your dealers that are doing that are issuing at more than one temp tag. There is only supposed to be one temp tag. When they go in and they change Terry Smith to T Smith or Terry S, they now are committing a felony. That's computer fraud. You're
So
not
how were
allowed
they
to do
doing it
that.
before the ETR system where they had to go to the courthouse? It wasn't it much harder to do then?
No, I mean, because they didn't, well, as long as I've been at GIADA, we went from writing 30 days on the back of a temporary tag to the hologram strips to the new TOPS, which is a temporary, temporary operating permit, temporary tags. They've turned the paperwork in to the tax commissioner, but the dealers still issued the temporary tag. And yes, there were a lot of problems. We just didn't know about it.
So where do they get these TOPS tags at?
They get them from the two associations, from GIADA and GADA.
So that's the only place they can get them, right?
Yes.
So how much money do y'all stand to lose if we do away with this?
I would say on just the top itself,
Well, if we do away with the ETR system?
of $4. Well, we make $4.25 on each ETR transaction on some dealers. Now, there are other dealers that the vendors have cut a deal with because of the large volume that we might only make $1.70 on. That's not unusual either. But right now, between the training that we have set up, we really go around the state of Georgia and offer training. We teach the pre-license classes in the state of Georgia, so we still continuously have 150 to 200 dealers coming on board that have to be trained as well.
Okay, I don't see any other questions at this time. Does anybody else have a question? What number? Number 7.
Thank you for your testimony. Obviously, you have a caution with this. So do you have a fix for an idea? This is an honest question. You said you have issue with this one. Is there a solution that y'all have in mind, or have y'all talked to the author of the bill on a solution?
Well, I think the solution is to stay with ETR and keep it mandatory. I mean, doing things electronically, you can track everything that's being done. Is that what you're talking about?
So, in the legislature, right, we look at both sides. So there are some rural folks that have expressed concern about doing this for us. You express concern about this way. I'm asking, is there a middle path that there's a solution?
Go ahead.
The rural dealers that are having issues, I imagine part of their issues are training perhaps, and also maybe problems they're having with late fees because they're not getting the right documents in. The GIADA exists to serve these small rural dealers. I mean, we're an association of mostly small dealers. And so I would say to those dealers that, use your association, take advantage of the training and the employees down at the associations so they can learn how to deal with the situation. I'm not quite sure what the problems they're having are, but because I don't get those phone calls. But as a dealer myself, I don't have any problems.
Now, I can tell you a lot of problems that we do have are just missing documents. Now, right now we have 2 full-time people. That's all they deal with is missing documents. But we can't turn those into the state when we don't have a copy of a driver's license or a bill of sale or the MV7D, or we're missing signatures. That paperwork's not done properly. Before, I think in some of these rural counties, the dealer could walk in and maybe the tax commissioner would just fix it for him, which really is not the way to do it either. These dealers need to be made responsible to get the proper paperwork to complete that deal for their consumer, period. And you have so many dealers that don't have issues with it, but you do have some that do. I have a lady in South Georgia that I feel so sorry for. They've made her the spokesperson. I think it's Norton Tire Service. Y'all might, if you're in that area, you might know her. But she has a lot of dealers. We just sent out an email recently about the new tops that are coming out. And I just got some nasty emails from that area. And she sent me one of the emails. I said, please call me and let me explain it to you on the phone. I am not a big technology person, even though I should be. I like talking to people. I like explaining to them. And I like to be able to read their body language and see exactly what they're thinking. She said, they've actually put this burden on me because none of them are happy with what's going on. And I explained to her the top fraud. I explained to her how we're able to put these bad dealers out of business, which is just opening up more opportunity for the dealers that are doing it the right way. She was real thankful for the phone call. I told her, I said, any issues you have, give us a call. We do title training. We actually have one-on-one training where we try to help these dealers with the late fees because they are getting hit with a lot of late fees. But we don't get the money for that. The state of Georgia gets the money for the late fees, and it is an astronomical amount of money being collected.
All right, we've got one more question, and we're going to cut it off. Okay. Number 2.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the things that you have alluded to regarding the potential of up to 200,000 fraudulent tops, and people should be going to jail for that. But in terms of why you like the electronic way of transferring the tag is to better find bad actors.
The only way you have to track how many tags they're buying and how many they're actually processing the title with.
The thing that I've heard from some of my tax commissioners, who, by the way, act as agents for the state of Georgia in remitting Georgia fees that we don't pay them for, and we should be thankful, and we are, is that no one looks at these things. So they're some of these are arguing the other side. They say when they actually come here, we can see screwy things that go on, and we can see where the system's being manipulated. Where when it's sent electronically, we don't see until after the fact, after the customer's gone, after the paperwork's been transmitted, that the audit trail is incomplete outside of a face-to-face interaction. And I understand this does not mandate, this particular bill does not mandate coming in, but it does provide a provision where it could be done the old-fashioned way. So my question is, what I was getting from the tax commissioners is different in terms of being able to spot some fraudulent things than what you were indicating, that the only way that you can spot it is through electronic means.
Well, because those titles, by the time the tax commissioner gets them, they've already been QA'd. I mean, they've already been looked at. Everything is right on it. All the proper documents are there. The mileage is correct. You know, the signatures are on there. All the supporting documents are there. Everything's there when we send it in. It's already been checked. So they're now not having to deal with right now I still have 625 dealers with missing paperwork that we're texting, calling, emailing. And it's sometimes an act of Congress to get some of these guys on the phone to be able to get those missing documents. And we don't send it in until it's complete, so there's really nothing for them to check when that gets to them. It's already been QA'd and it's all complete when they get it. And then they're getting paid on the TABT.
And I would just say that what she's referring to is the ETR vendors are responsible for doing the quality assurance on making sure those titles have all the proper signatures, are filled out properly, and that paperwork is all correct.
All right.
So that is being done.
Thank you. I see no further questions. Thank you for your
Thank you
testimony.
so much for your time.
At this time, I'd be willing to entertain a motion if it's the will of the committee.
Mr. Chairman, we make a motion to pass.
We have a motion to pass. Do we have a second? We've got a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Bill carries. All right, I think we've probably got time for one more bill, and it's House Bill 463. Martin, if you go up to the podium, probably the best place to present that for us. Where you put the district number down here?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the esteemed committee. I present to you today HB 463. We're working off LC number 392157. This bill allows operators of certain three-wheeled vehicles to be operated on the roadways with a Class C driver's license without the use of headgear or eye protection, given that the auto cycle, which is its coined name here, or three-wheeled vehicle meets the criteria in the code section. The code section being changed in lines 18, 19, 37, and 38, 45, and 46 can all be simplified as being the following: fully enclosed by roll cage or other protective enclosure, and having seat belts. The removal of code sections in lines 18 and 37 can be simplified as the following. Basically, we're allowing this auto to have less structure to allow the manufacturers of these certain vehicles to make safe auto cycles without having to petition the committee or the assembly in the future. What that changes, a change from a handlebar to a steering wheel. If we're moving it to a handlebar, you can move and steer the vehicle without having to lean like a motorcycle. So we definitely want to have a difference between a motorcycle and an auto cycle. Motorcycle having two wheels, these auto cycles having three wheels. This exclusion is already in place for certain vehicles, and we are extending this exclusion to this certain type of auto cycle to, ready to continue to keep Georgia the #1 place to do business. We ask, thank you for your time, ask for your favorable consideration, open to taking the questions.
All right, we have a question, number 9.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the gentleman that's presenting this bill, and I appreciate it, but is it not true that what we're trying to do is over the last several years that we have passed legislation because of the new inventions of auto cycles? And these are the three-wheel models and the such like that. But under the current, under the previous law, that these were treated as a motorcycle, so they were expected to have a helmet on. Last year we came in and we changed it, and it was a quick fix, and we changed the handlebars to a steering wheel. Now what we're doing is, because we have not been able to do a definition for an auto cycle out of risk of getting involved in the franchise laws for motor vehicles, then what we've done is we fixed this way, and these are in fact auto cycles. They're not a motorcycle, but by saying that they have the safety equipment, seat belts, and a partially enclosed frame, that makes them an auto cycle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's correct. And we want to make these changes so that in the future they're not having to petition the committee, but that is absolutely correct. That's the intention of the bill.
Good deal.
Number 7.
Representative, I agree with this bill. I appreciate you bringing it. I do have one question, however. In lines 15 and 16, it talks about vehicle weight being in excess of 10,000 pounds. And my question is that with you or without you in the vehicle?
Well, I want to be quite honest with you. With me, you probably need a CDL.
I like your bill. Thank you, sir.
Number 9.
Is it also not true that the language that my distinguished colleague just talked about means that these vehicles are under that weight, not over that weight? And at the proper time, I'd like to be recognized for a motion.
Seeing no further questions, now would be the proper time.
I move that this committee pass on House Bill 463 with a due pass recommendation.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right. We've got a few minutes. You got your bill. We've got one other bill on the agenda, and it's gonna be a hearing only on 410, House Bill
Okay.
410. If
That'd
you
be
wanna
one-
present that while you're here, we'll
Yes,
go ahead and hear it.
that'd be
This
wonderful.
be a hearing only.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman, members of this esteemed committee. Present to you today HB 410, LC number 392146. Thousands of drivers in our states are using LED light bars. And actually, y'all have a picture here. I'll show you what they are. They're light devices. They're mounted on the top of these, a lot of different types of Jeeps or trucks. They are especially high use in rural areas where deer and other wildlife may travel into a roadway and cause danger to motorists and passengers. These lights allow for motorists to quickly assess wildlife dangers at night and come to a stop protecting the vehicle, its passengers, and the wildlife. This bill permits, and we're kind of bringing it out of a gray area. There isn't a code section that refers to LED light bars. So this bill permits the application and installation of an LED light bar device to be mounted on the top or the front of the vehicle with certain restrictions. The following restrictions are here, and so it's to effectively to turn the LED light bar off in accordance to 40-8-31, the high beam, low beam law, or to be used in conjunction as a replacement for high beams on a motor vehicle. Some of these are being created to put in a restoration vehicle. Let's say I have a 1968 Mustang and I want to put new headlights in it. They're going to be LED. They're going to be replacements. These parts just aren't available anymore, especially as we get into an older vehicle. So it's in another important use. There must be a switch installed in the interior of the vehicle that allows the driver to turn off the LED light when driving. So if I'm passing a motorist, or I'm approaching that motorist from the rear, I could turn this light off, not to blind them. And that's actually where this bill came from. There was a elderly lady back home who got blinded by one of these light bars and said, what are we going to do about this? And there wasn't really a definitive code section to address that. So simply put, this is a measure to ensure that motorists choosing to use LED light bars turn down their lights when passing or approaching another motorist from the rear. There are no restrictions when using these LED light bars off-road or on a privately owned road. I want to say this too. The hope with this bill would be to have a code section that could be referenced as a consideration or causation to an accident. So if right now we have our sheriffs and we have our deputy and police officers basically pulling at code sections saying this was the causation of this, right? There's nothing that really addresses these light bars. By doing this, we can see that this was causative, right, or is a contributing factor to an accident, and we can come back and say, in 2 years or 4 years, say maybe we do need to put a lid on these things. But right now, we don't want to restrict what is effectively a rural industry. So, thank you for your time. And thank you for no consideration today, but I'm open to take any questions.
Well, we've got a couple questions. Actually, it's lighting up like a Christmas tree. But number 6.
Again, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is not per se directly related to your bill, but in a way it is. I happen to be driving, thank you, Mr. Chairman, by the way, and thank you for bringing this bill. I was driving southbound on 75, as I do quite often driving home to Southeast Georgia. It was kind of a rainy, misty evening. And I was in the DOT Peach Lane, which I appreciate, by the way, because it gets me past all the McDonough bad traffic when I'm trying to get home. But I actually came upon one of the DOT, and I've got the wrong term here, but the angel folks heroes, thank you, that are on the road. And the LED lights were so bright, there was a vehicle working to help a vehicle stranded in that express lane, and the lights were so bright, my vision was blurred approaching that vehicle, and I could not see the surrounding vehicles as I approached that area where the vehicle was being helped and serviced. So, again, not related to your bill per se, but I think the issue of bright LED lights with all of our vehicles on the road need to be something that is of concern and of interest to our state in terms of overall driver safety and not being able to see as you approach vehicles that have these lights. But I know that does not addressed in your bill, but wanted it on the record about my concern about overall safety.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And absolutely, I'll speak to that. This doesn't address it. It actually gives an exemption to law enforcement and public safety. but it's an issue, right? And we need to start addressing it in a meaningful way, in a common sense way. One of the things I feel like is we have this kind of tendency just to ban everything. That you know, if it's a bright light or something like that, I think we can have common sense solutions to this. We've got kids. This is a trainable moment. Son, turn down your lights. You know, honey, turn down your lights when you're going down the road. You're approaching another vehicle, and that includes your light bar.
And as a follow-up, there used to be, RU vehicles used to be, and I guess I'm aging myself here, RU vehicles used to have automatic sensors that would turn off the brights as you approach another vehicle. I don't think that exists much anymore in vehicles, but
No,
that
it
was
does.
a nice
It-
safety
it-
feature.
Actually, it does.
Well, the vehicles I'm currently driving don't have that feature. I wish they did.
I've got a 2000 Toyota Tundra. It don't do none of that.
All right, number 10.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Did I cut it off?
You did. Now you're back on.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and all I can say is that I'm glad you're bringing it because I'm only saying this because I just had my '89 S10, and I couldn't. The lights that came with the car, I could probably see as far as from here to about 6 feet in front of me.
Right.
So what I did was I put the LED kit on, boy. I mean, I can see real bright. I mean, haven't had a chance to drive it, but I did, and I was kind of concerned. It's like, okay, is this legal? And I think it is, but I don't. I'm just glad that we're having this conversation. But bars, I never saw one. I mean, I can just see how these bars could really do some lighting.
Representative McLean, absolutely right. This is just a public safety issue, and this is what we're trying to address here. The elderly lady couldn't see around the vehicle. In fact, she called it a UFO. She said, "I thought a UFO was coming at me." I said, and it makes sense because all you can see is the light bar. You can't. It's just like somebody flashed you with a bright flashlight right in your eye. You can't see anything else but that bright light. So, thank you, Representative.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing it.
Number 16.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Pun intended. I think the language right now is kind of clear as mud, because when I first read it, it's saying, well, you can mount it. It should be okay to mount it on the vehicle, and it should only be, and then towards the end of the language it says it should only be used on off-road purposes and for a private road. But then in the middle of the language, it discusses that it should be mounted in a way that doesn't project into drivers' eyes, and I think that would be hard to interpret in a court of law. If this light was on and the granny that you talked about or the little old lady couldn't see around the vehicle. I mean, to my understanding, the Federal Department of Transportation does not consider these for road use at all. They're strictly off-road lights. So I don't know. And it's just my opinion. I think the language should be written in a way that on a rural highway, if there are no other drivers around in the state of Georgia, maybe you could use this. But on a state highway or anything like that, no use at all.
This was the clearest way that we can make the intent of having some type of restrictive use of these light bars, because if we leave them in a legal gray area, there's nothing, the law enforcement can enforce this. And so, again, the intent has kind of two sides to it. One of it is to address the issue of these usually younger teenagers that are just wiring right into the battery, right? This provides for a switch. This provides for some type of guidance on how to install them, where to install them, in such a way, and if you read the code section, when we talk about glaring rays, that has its own definition. That's not here, but it does have its own definition. When we talk about 40-8-31, I believe that's the code section. It is 40-8-31. It has its own parameters as far as what is a glaring ray, right? What is the uppermost distribution of light? What's the lowermost distribution of light? That's there. It's in those code sections. Be happy to present that information to you after this committee meeting.
Yeah, I'd love to see that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Like I said, this was a hearing only. Thank you for bringing the bill. And I look forward to working with you to make sure we get everybody's concerns addressed. And if no further questions, we'll adjourn the meeting.
Thank you,
y'all.
Mr. Chairman.